I think you can make the case that J.J. McCarthy is in the best spot we've seen a rookie quarterback go in offensive-wise in a long time. After Offensive Rookie of the Year would be J.J. or Caleb.
When people ask me who's going to be the second quarterback, the second best quarterback in this draft is whoever Minnesota gets.
6 quarterbacks were drafted in the first 12 picks of the 2024 draft, matching a record set back in 1983. But when we look back at them a decade from now, it should have been obvious that the best of them landed in Minnesota. And now look, a rookie quarterback's journey to success depends on various factors, extending far beyond his individual talent and potential. The ecosystem he steps into, from the supporting cast on offense to the coaching staff's philosophy and track record, plays a pivotal role. And no quarterback this year has a better cast around him than J.J. McCarthy and is ready to be the Vikings' savior. Minnesota this year headed into the 2024 offseason in what appeared to be a pretty dire situation. The synergy of the 2022 season culminated in a 13-4 regular season record, which on paper looks really good and had them leading the way in the NFC North for almost the entirety of the regular season campaign. But in the playoffs, disaster struck, and the once promising opportunity of a perfectly synchronized Vikings outfit crumbled at the first hurdle when it mattered most. And after being on such a high that year, 2023 brought the Vikings faithful back to planet Earth, stumbling to a 7-10 record amidst a season in which franchise quarterback Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, ending the team's hopes of repeating the playoff push of that previous year. And as it turned out, that would be the last action we ever saw of Kirk Cousins in the Minnesota Purple, opting to test the free agency market instead of working a new deal to remain the quarterback for Kevin O'Connell in the Vikings franchise. And I mean, naturally, this left the Vikings in a very desperate situation. And suddenly this offense was loaded with weapons, but was missing the #1 component for success, with no backup plan, no emerging young quarterback, or a top 3 draft pick in which to claim one. And as crazy as it sounds, a free agency scramble had them land the journeyman Sam Darnold in what appeared to be a Hail Mary attempt to plug the gap. And the most shocking part is that Kirk Cousins wasn't even the only one to leave along the way. In the last couple of seasons, several cornerstone players have packed up their things and left Minnesota.
Breaking news in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings are planning to move on from star running back Dalvin Cook, according to multiple reports.
Pilfering from the Vikings yesterday, Danielle Hunter on a 2-year deal with $48 million guaranteed, reportedly max value of $51 million.
Dalvin Cook's prime window had closed and he was gone, and defensive superstar Danielle Hunter joined Kirk Cousins as a premium talent in the free agency market. With the best years of this Vikings roster's greatest players happening at this very moment, the 2024 offseason proved vital to rebuilding their hopes of challenging for a Super Bowl. Like, look, it's not very often you get a young wide receiver like Justin Jefferson to come along and start smashing the records of Randy Moss. And when you pair him with 2023 rookie Jordan Addison and an elite tight end in TJ Hawkinson, you have a trio that would rival the talent of any other group in the league.
2, that scheme is married with a play caller that I think Kevin O'Connell's got himself into the conversation for one of the, top 6-7 play callers we have in the NFL. And then Justin Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and Aaron Jones and a top 8 offensive line. That's so rare for a rookie quarterback to go into.
And shifts at the running back position meant that they needed to find a new running back. And a solution came there in honestly the most unlikely source. Unable to agree on terms with the franchise that drafted him back in 2017, Aaron Jones swapped the Cheeseheads for the Vikings, almost completing a phenomenal looking offense. There was just one very clear issue they had, an elephant in the room that pretty much damned any shot they had of entering the Super Bowl or even playoff conversation. Nobody fears Sam Darnold as a quarterback. Nobody except an offense led by him or any other has-been quarterback to seriously challenge the likes of San Francisco or Detroit in the NFC. So in the build-up to the 2024 NFL Draft, the general manager of the Vikings made a trade. No team was considered a more likely candidate to trade into the top 5 than the Vikings. The entire pre-draft process considered them the team attempting to trade up with New England to the 3rd overall pick, or who knows, even exchanging with Arizona for the number 4 spot. But when the Vikings traded with Houston to acquire the 23rd overall pick in the days leading up to the draft, many confirmed their suspicion that the franchise would indeed gear up to offer a luxurious looking package to one of those teams in the top 5. And draft day came around and no such trade happened. It was pretty chalked up to that point. Caleb Williams went number 1, Jaden Daniels 2 to Washington, and May 3rd to New England. And while the phones were ringing, no serious deal was considered, so Minnesota simply stayed put. QB number 4 came off the board at pick number 8 somehow, in a stunning turn of events. And all of a sudden, the Vikings appeared to be on the verge of landing their number 1 guy without having to move an inch. But just to be safe,
Jets were on the clock. They have traded on this 2024 NFL draft to Minnesota.
Wow.
Who was allegedly going to move up to get a quarterback, is what everybody was thinking.
I certainly think JJ McCarthy fits Kevin O'Connell's offense, right? Underneath center, JJ's going to be very comfortable with that. Play action game, crossers over the middle, all that stuff. That's what JJ did in Michigan.
a national championship winning young star with a ceiling rivaling any other signal caller in the class. The man to take the team over the top and guide them through a postseason run in the land of 10,000 lakes. For the Vikings and the rest of the front office, the outcome was truly spectacular. They could have easily given up their next 3 years worth of first round picks to trade up into the top 3.
They got a guy they wanted, and it didn't cost them an arm and a leg, and just the idea that he's just a couple days ago, he had a quote where he said he'd run through a wall for Kevin O'Connell, so he was excited to be here. We're excited to have him. It's all on paper right now anyway, so what more could you want, right?
But instead, they showed poise, waited it out, and got their guy without having to move anywhere near as much capital. And one quick thing before we start, I wanted to celebrate the recent success of the channel of hitting 13,000 subscribers. So to give back to you guys, I wanted to do a giveaway, and the winner will either get a signed mini helmet or jersey, whichever one gets more votes by the end of this week on my community tab. So make sure you go over there and vote. To enter, simply join the Discord by using the link in the description, as well as following me on Twitter. I highly recommend joining the Discord. We are going to be doing watch parties with little mini giveaways during it all NFL season long, as well as a fantasy league to win some big money too once it gets closer to kickoff. So I'll see you guys over there, but for now, let's get back to the video. The question now is though, how soon will McCarthy play? And make no mistake about this, this is no Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love situation we have on our hands here. Neither is the Michael Penix situation in Atlanta, but good thing they'll be starting him in 4 to 5 years apparently. Like, why did you even draft him at that point? It's easy to sit a young quarterback for multiple seasons when the guy in front of him is a first ballot Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winning quarterback playing at an MVP level. But I hate to break it to Sam Darnold, but he's none of those things. Personally, I think JJ McCarthy is going to play and play early. It might not be week 1, but the Vikings didn't draft a guy to command an offense loaded with talent only to sit him in the shadows for the entire season. He is of course young, the youngest actually out of the top 6 quarterbacks, because he only turned 21 in January, but he has never shown a lack of maturity on the football field. Honestly, it's been the quite opposite of that. He threw just 4 interceptions in the entire 2023 college football season, and 3 of those came in the same game early in the year against Bowling Green of all teams. And I mean, once he got that out of his system and learned from his mistakes, he was nearly flawless the rest of the way through the season. McCarthy effectively managed the Michigan offense for 2 full seasons. He quarterbacked a team that prided itself on running the damn football, controlling possessions and slowly wearing down the opponent with gritty football played in the trenches, the Jim Harbaugh way. That meant that his college stats didn't really resemble the flair of some of the others in the class, making McCarthy something of a unique prospect going into the whole draft process. What he did have working in his favor though was the tremendous poise he showed in the 2023 season. One last ride both for he and his coach, and McCarthy never missed a beat. He was flawless against Ohio State in the final game of the regular season, a game with insane conference and college football implications. And in that game, he completed 80% of his passes. Efficiency is everything, ladies ladies and gentlemen. McCarthy helped the Wolverines stroll past Iowa to win the Big Ten, then threw 3 touchdowns in what might have been the biggest game of his college career against Alabama in the playoff semifinals to set up the ultimate last battle against the Washington Huskies. And guess what? The 20-year-old would claim that game too, cementing himself as the guy who finally got Jim Harbaugh's Michigan over the line and into the history books as a college football national champion. The NFL was set to be the next challenge, but teams first had to place JJ McCarthy and his skill set, getting to know both he and his playstyle before making their decisions. And Jim Harbaugh, with perhaps a little bit of bias, believed that McCarthy could have gone number 1 and that he was the best quarterback in the class.
Don't be surprised if he goes all the way to number 1 quarterback off the board.
And while that might be crazy to say on his part, I actually agree with him. Like, people don't understand that nothing phases this kid. He is wicked accurate and presents a level of athleticism that is of course extremely popular in the modern day NFL. Not only that, but McCarthy is not afraid to use that athleticism and put his body on the line when the team needs an extra inch. He is absolutely respected for that, and among other reasons too, found himself a locker room favorite amongst his teammates. Like, this kid is very, very football smart. He reads the game well, almost always makes the right choices for the offense, and impressed teams leading up to the draft. He absolutely shot up the draft boards unlike anything we have ever seen before.
But JJ McCarthy, the response to that pro day is as strong as I can remember for anyone since maybe like Sam Bradford. It was that good.
Now, having been drafted 10th overall by the Minnesota Vikings, McCarthy finds himself in a position to unleash the talent many believe he has yet to showcase.
I think that it's debatable whether they were hiding him versus whether they were, and by they I mean, of course, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, playing in a way that worked, obviously. They were also playing with a lead a lot, so there wasn't a reason in a lot of games for him to throw them out of trouble. Teams like him because a couple reasons. Teams love the unknown, right? So there's a small sample size, so you can project anything you want onto JJ McCarthy. He is a perfect canvas upon which NFL GMs can paint their fantasies, but he also has some pretty good traits: accuracy, athleticism. I think he's smart.
And that level of mystery intrigued teams enough around the league. The Vikings won out, and if the prediction of Jim Harbaugh and those in the Vikings building is correct, this is a championship level team. Like, look, if McCarthy pans out the way I think he is, you could line this Minnesota Vikings offense up against any group in the NFL, and I might take the Vikings offense over any other group. That's just how good they are. And look, the Vikings have 2 of the youngest and best wide receivers under 25. And look, I know that we did see a little bit of that glimmer on how good Jordan Addison is. Like, Justin Jefferson is one of the best receivers to hit the league in its history. Like, McCarthy might not have had elite level numbers at Michigan, but he didn't have all pro receivers to throw to either. Kevin O'Connell has been a superb hire for the Vikings franchise. A former quarterback himself, O'Connell has earned the respect of his players, and Kirk Cousins has nothing but great things to say about him despite going their separate ways. The now Vikings head coach helped the Rams to win the Super Bowl as the team's offensive coordinator, developing from roles as a quarterback's coach with various teams into the position he's in today. If any head coach is in the position to nurture and unleash JJ McCarthy upon the league, it's Kevin O'Connell. Like, if he coaches up this kid the right way, he could have him winning Rookie of the Year and even playing football in January. And for all of these reasons that I've already given so far, this is the reason why we don't really know how high his ceiling is. Like, McCarthy's trajectory can just continue to soar through the roof. At a young age, with minimal game footage and little wear and tear, he enters the league fresh off securing college football's highest honor. Plus, Minnesota has one of the league's best defensive coordinators, a man who learned his trade claiming no less than 4 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots before getting a shot at head coaching role of his own. Brian Flores has flipped the narrative on this Vikings defense since arriving in 2023, and this offseason has continued to add pieces that will help him execute the playstyle he wants to implement. Danielle Hunter might be gone, but the Vikings landed Jonathan Greenyard in free agency. The former Houston Texans development as an edge rusher has been outstanding, and he'll now get a shot shot at the primary guy on the defensive front of a new shiny deal in Minnesota. Flores went and got Andrew Van Ginkel too, a man he worked with in Miami who was consistently underrated while featuring in South Florida. He's a talented pass rusher and a disruptive talent who has always been around the football and of course knows the Flores defense all too well. They weren't done there either too. Minnesota completed the defensive rebuild by playing aggressively in the draft, trading up from 23 to 17 to draft Dallas Turner as he dropped further than he should have in the first round and honestly was such a good pick by them. Turner was widely considered the draft's greatest pass rusher and he fell into the laps of the Vikings, fitting the system perfectly as a powerful edge rusher with speed and the ability to cause chaos in the backfield. He will be an impact player for the Vikings on day one. And the GM's haste in trading up to ensure that they got him after seeing a couple of defensive players go off the board should be commended. Looking back at this draft right now, it honestly reminds me of the Texans draft last year. They got the quarterback they wanted that fell to them. And then on top of that, they traded up and got one of the best defensive players in the draft in an edge rusher. It sounds just like the Texans right now. And they have an even better offense than the Texans did last year. You could quite comfortably say that Minnesota got the two biggest steals of the entire draft. The result is a team now absolutely capable of going 12 rounds with the rest of the NFC North and the wider conference. In recent years, the rise of the Detroit Lions, emergence of Jordan Love, and now the imminent X factor that is Caleb Williams has made the NFC North one of the most entertaining divisions in football, but it's also now one of the most competitive as well. JJ McCarthy will thrust the Vikings back into the mix, poised to challenge for the division title and a primary spot in the playoffs. And honestly, Minnesota deserves their flowers for the off seasons they've had too. At times it appeared as though the sky was falling, bleeding edge rushers and losing their franchise quarterback. But nobody panicked. The front office remained calm they were 2 seasons ago. And then even better, I'd say. With the right coaching, 13 wins is more than achievable once again for this team. And I fully expect them to surpass just about everybody's expectations this season before they stampede through the playoffs. I'd honestly even consider them not even a dark horse at this point, just a very real, very talented, extremely well-coached football team with their eyes on the prize. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that the Vikings are going to make the playoffs? Do you think JJ McCarthy is legit, or is he the biggest bust of the draft? Let me know it in the comment section below, and as always, I will catch you guys in the next one.